As a retired physician, I've seen more lives claimed by cancer than I care to count. I still remember the faces, the trembling hands of a mother who just heard she wouldn't see her child's graduation, the blank stare of a father who learned his lungs had turned against him, and the young man barely 30 whose body had become a battlefield of broken cells and lost hope. I was there, behind the diagnosis. I delivered the news. And each time, I wondered the same thing. Could we have stopped this earlier? You see, in medical school, we're taught to fight disease with chemicals, radiation, knives. But what they don't tell you, what they barely mention, is that the war doesn't start in a lab or an operating room. It starts in the kitchen, on the plate. In what we put into our bodies every single day. Most people are shocked when I say this. But let me tell you something that may disturb you. According to the World Health Organization, over 10 million people die from cancer every single year. That's more than all wars and natural disasters combined. Yet, in some remote villages, places untouched by processed foods and fast food chains, cancer is almost unheard of. I've spent the latter part of my career studying these regions, Okinawa and Hanzanikoya. I've walked the dirt roads, sat at humble wooden tables, tasted their food, asked their elders. What I found wasn't a miracle pill, it was habits. Simple, ancient, nutritional wisdom passed down like prayer. They weren't eating for pleasure. They were eating to survive, to protect, to heal. Back home, we scoff at such ideas. We chase the next miracle drug while ignoring the silent damage done by our own forks and spoons. Cancer doesn't happen overnight, it grows quietly, secretly, inflammation after inflammation, mutation after mutation, over years of dietary neglect. I know what you're thinking. Doc, are you saying a salad can stop cancer? No, I'm not peddling hope wrapped in lettuce. What I'm telling you, what I need you to hear is this. Food is not just calories. It is information, it talks to your cells, it programs your immune system. It can either ignite or extinguish disease. In my last years of practice, I started to shift. I prescribed fewer pills and more produce. I stopped focusing only on cure and started focusing on prevention. And I saw something remarkable. Blood markers improved, tumors slowed. Some patients who were told they had months lived for years, and those years were vibrant. Now in retirement, I carry no title, no hospital badge. Just memories and a responsibility, because if I don't speak, who will? That's why I created this channel, not to scare you, but to awaken you. Because once you understand how deeply food affects your fate, you can no longer eat blindly, you begin to ask questions. You begin to choose with awareness, you reclaim control. In this series, I'm going to walk you through 16 powerful foods, not trendy superfoods or overpriced supplements, but real, accessible gifts from nature, each backed by solid research, capable of making a profound difference in your body's internal war. You don't have to memorize chemical names or read PubMed studies. I've done that for you. All I ask is that you listen with the same seriousness as if your life or the life of someone you love depended on it. Because it might. But before we go further, I'd like to ask you for something small. If you believe this kind of information matters, if you want more videos that peel back the layers of what truly keeps us healthy, subscribe to the channel. It's free for you, but it gives me the fuel to keep going, to keep sharing, to keep remembering all those faces I couldn't save, and maybe help save the ones I still can. Now, before we dive into the first food, I want to ask you a question. And I'd love to hear your answer in the comments below. Question. In your opinion, which one plays a bigger role in long-term health? Are the treatments you receive after getting sick? Be the daily habits that prevent sickness from taking root? Type or be in the comments and let's see how many of us are ready to take our health into our own hands. When I was a young doctor, I used to think that cancer was an unpredictable beast, random, cruel, unstoppable. Back then, we didn't know much about its root causes. We knew how to treat the symptoms, how to cut it out, burn it, poison it. But why it started, that was the great mystery. I remember staring at scan after scan, wondering why one patient succumbed while another survived. Over time, patterns began to emerge, not in the blood tests, not in the tumors, but in the stories. What were they eating? How were they living? What filled their plates, day after day, for decades? That question haunted me. And so, in the middle of my career, I stepped away from surgery, away from the endless halls of radiation units, and I began to travel. I went not just to hospitals, but to markets, farms, villages, places where cancer rates were mysteriously low. And I started connecting dots that medical textbooks didn't cover. Today, I want to share with you something few doctors ever discuss. Not theory, not miracle cures, just facts and food. There are certain natural foods, grown in soil, ripened under the sun, that science has studied closely over the past few decades. These are not obscure plants from distant jungles, though some are certainly exotic. These are everyday blessings, gifts from nature, that seem to hold tremendous power against one of the deadliest diseases of our time. We begin with a tiny seed with ancient roots, black cumin, or as scientists call it, Nigella sativa. I first encountered it while visiting a small village in northern Egypt. Locals would sprinkle the ground seeds over lentil stews and drizzle the oil on salads. They called it the seed that cures everything but death. At first, I dismissed it as folklore, but then I began reading. Peer-reviewed studies from journals like Oncology Letters and Ethnopharmacology confirmed what tradition had long whispered. A compound called thymoquinone in black cumin interrupts cancer cell pathways, slowing growth and even triggering cell death. Another compound, thymohydroquine, shows promise particularly in combating brain tumors, especially the notoriously aggressive glioblastoma. Next, I want to tell you about mangosteen, a fruit so rich in color it looks almost unreal. I saw my first one in Thailand, offered to me by a 90-year-old man with clear eyes and steady hands. He ate them daily. I later learned that mangosteen is packed with polyphenols called xanthone, specifically alpha-mangosteen, which, according to the Journal of Natural Medicines, exhibit potent anti-cancer activity against breast and colon cells. These compounds don't just slow cancer, they induce its suicide, a process called apoptosis. It's elegant, clean, almost poetic, the way nature self-regulates. From the humid forests of Southeast Asia, we move to the lush Amazon, where acai berries grow wild. You've probably seen acai in smoothie bowls on Instagram. But beyond the trend lies something far more serious. Acai berries contain anthocyanins, deep purple pigments that do more than please the eye. In studies published in Nutrients and the Journal of Functional Foods, these compounds were shown to inhibit the growth of colon cancer and leukemia cells. That word inhibit, it may not sound dramatic, but it is. It means cancer's progress is slowed, its aggression reduced. For a patient, that can mean months or even years of quality life gained. And then there's sauersup, also known as graviola. This one breaks all rules. It's prickly, oddly shaped, and its taste, a strange blend of strawberry and citrus, is unforgettable. I once visited a clinic in Costa Rica where local healers brewed tea from its leaves. I was skeptical. But then I found research out of the Journal of Medicinal Food detailing how compounds called acetogenins in sauersup target and kill malignant cells in up to 12 types of cancer, including some of the most lethal: pancreatic, breast, lung, colon. These compounds don't just attack blindly. They selectively target cancer cells, sparing healthy ones. That precision is something modern medicine still struggles to replicate. What do all of these have in common? They weren't invented in a lab. They didn't need branding or billion-dollar marketing campaigns. They were here long before we were. And now, backed by science, they are quietly stepping onto the stage, not as replacements for chemotherapy or surgery, but as powerful allies. I do not offer these findings lightly. I've held too many hands in hospice to deal in false hope. But I also believe that hope, real, evidence-based hope, is the most powerful medicine of all. You may be wondering, should I run out and buy all of these? Start eating mangosteen every day. Drink sauersup tea morning and night. No, that's not what I'm asking. What I urge is that you start thinking about what you eat, not just in terms of taste or calories, but in terms of what it's whispering to your cells. Is your food fueling life or feeding disease? Cancer is not just a roll of the dice. It is, in part, a result of long-term exposure, environmental, emotional, and yes, nutritional. The foods I've shared with you today are not magic, but they tilt the odds. They give your body a fighting chance. And for many, that can make all the difference. These are just the first of many in our journey. There are more foods, more stories, more evidence. But for today, I ask you to remember this: your plate is not just a collection of ingredients. It is your first pharmacy. Choose wisely, eat with intention, and let nature do what it was always designed to do: heal. I'll see you in the next chapter. When I think about the patients I couldn't save, I often wonder, not with regret, but with a quiet sense of urgency, how many of them might have had a different outcome if their immune systems had been better prepared for the fight. Cancer, after all, isn't always an external invader. It begins from within: mutated cells that escape detection, slip past our natural defenses, and multiply in the shadows. And what stands between health and disease, between early destruction and deadly spread, is often the immune system. During my decades as a practicing physician, I witnessed the silent power of immunity. I saw some patients with robust, reactive systems beat diagnoses that others could not. Their recovery wasn't just about chemotherapy or radiation, it was about the body's internal army, responding, recognizing, fighting back. That's why, when people ask me where to begin in cancer prevention, I don't always start with the disease itself, I start with immunity. And the tools that strengthen it don't come from syringes or pharmaceutical labs. Many of them come, quite humbly, from nature's pantry. Let me take you back to a case I remember vividly. A woman in her late 50s, newly diagnosed with liver cancer. Her prognosis wasn't promising, but she wasn't ready to give up. She asked me, "Is there anything I can do to help my body help itself?" That question stuck with me. And it's the very heart of this chapter: how to help the body become a better defender. Asparagus was one of the foods I began recommending more often, not because it was trendy or exotic, but because it held something quite extraordinary. Hidden in its green spears is a compound called aspirin, which scientists have studied for its ability to induce cell cycle arrest in liver cancer cells. In simple terms, it tells cancer cells to pause, stop multiplying, and in some cases, to die, but asparagus doesn't stop there. It's also rich in glutathione, a substance we used to dismiss as just another antioxidant until we realized it was the master antioxidant, regulating the others and helping neutralize the free radicals that trigger cellular mutations. You won't find that kind of power in a pill. Then there's garlic. Now, I grew up in a generation where garlic was considered old wives' medicine. But science has long since caught up with what folk traditions have practiced for centuries. When garlic is crushed or chopped, it releases a compound called allicin. You can smell it instantly. It's strong, almost medicinal. That sharpness is more than aroma, it's biochemical warfare. Allicin has been shown to slow or stop the proliferation of cancer cells. Diallyl sulfide, another compound in garlic, targets lung, skin, and colon cancer cells with precision. And aged garlic extract, something I used to roll my eyes at, contains acetylcysteine, which has shown promise in fighting prostate and breast cancer cells in clinical settings. I remember a patient who asked me if it was too late to change her diet after a cancer diagnosis. I told her it was never too late to give the immune system what it needs. I encouraged her to eat garlic daily, not because it was a cure, but because it could support her natural defenses. Her response was simple: "That, doctor, I can do," and sometimes that's the first victory, giving someone something they can do when everything else feels out of their control. Papaya is another overlooked treasure. Most people see it as a sweet, tropical fruit, but it's a silent healer. It's packed with lycopene, which we know can help reduce the risk of prostate cancer. But more interesting to me are its enzymes carpin and papain. These don't attack cancer directly, but they support the body's detoxification systems and digestion, creating a cleaner internal environment where inflammation has less room to grow. And cancer, in many forms, feeds off chronic inflammation like a parasite. When we reduce that terrain, we reduce its opportunities. I've seen remarkable results in patients who began incorporating these immune-supporting foods not instead of their treatments, but alongside them. And it's not just about cancer, by the way. Strengthening the immune system helps defend against a host of other chronic diseases, including those that weaken the body long before a cancer cell appears. Then there's mushrooms. Now this is a category modern medicine has only recently begun to respect. When I was younger, mushrooms were mostly culinary something to throw on a steak or in a soup. But traditional Eastern medicine has long recognized their power. Today, Western science confirms it. Beta-glucans found in mushrooms like shiitake, maitake, and reishi stimulate the immune system not in a vague, unmeasurable way, but in quantifiable increases in natural killer cell activity. These cells are the frontline soldiers against abnormal cell growth, including cancer. Another fascinating compound is ergosterol peroxide, which has shown anti-tumor effects. And then there are lectins, proteins found in many mushrooms that prevent cancer cells from multiplying. I've encouraged patients to consume mushrooms not just as a supplement, but as part of their regular meals. Stir-fried, sautéed, brewed into broths, even steeped into tea. Their effect isn't instant, but it is compounding, building a foundation the body can rely on. Let me be clear, I'm not promising miracles. I've been doing this long enough to know that cancer is complex. It doesn't respond to one thing. But what I've seen and what I want you to believe is that our bodies are not helpless. They are not passive, they are powerful, but only if we give them the tools they need. So many people wait until they're sick to start eating well. They wait for the diagnosis to stop smoking, stop drinking soda, start asking questions. But the immune system doesn't just come online when we're in crisis. It works quietly, daily, maintaining balance, detecting threats, eliminating damage until one day it can't, and by then, the odds are harder to beat. If there's one message I can leave you with today, it's this: don't wait. These foods aren't just for patients, they're for the healthy, for the young, for anyone who wants to live longer, better, stronger. The war against cancer isn't only fought in hospitals. It's fought in kitchens, in grocery store aisles, in daily choices. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today. Start small, add asparagus to your dinner. Slice some fresh papaya with breakfast. Stir mushrooms into your soup, mince garlic into your pasta. These aren't radical changes, they're lifelong investments. I spent a career watching the worst of what disease can do. Now, in retirement, I've made it my mission to share the best of what prevention can offer. This knowledge isn't new, it's ancient, tested, and proven. What's new is our willingness to listen, so listen well. Your immune system is already fighting for you. Don't leave it to battle alone, feed it, strengthen it, and give it the chance to do what it was built to do: protect you. When I first began practicing medicine, we didn't talk much about antioxidants. The term hadn't yet made its way into hospital rounds or medical journals. We focused on what we could cut, kill, or suppress. But something about that approach always felt incomplete. Over the decades, I began to see a pattern not just in who got sick, but in how people healed. Some patients responded to treatment in ways that defied odds. They bounced back quicker, endured chemo better, had fewer complications. And often, when I asked about their diets, there it was again: colors, plants, berries, oils. What we now call antioxidant-rich foods. I've come to understand that cancer, at its core, is not just a disease of rogue cells. It's a condition of imbalance, an internal storm of oxidation, inflammation, and cellular chaos. And antioxidants, quite simply, are our natural shield. They don't kill cancer cells directly like chemotherapy might, but they slow down the rusting of the body from the inside out. They create conditions where health can stabilize and where healing has a chance to begin. One of the most powerful examples I encountered came from a man in his 60s, an engineer, logical to the bone, skeptical of anything not stamped by a peer-reviewed journal. He had survived colon cancer surgery, but his recovery was slow. His wife, however, had been quietly introducing antioxidant-rich foods into every meal. Red grapes in his breakfast, extra virgin olive oil in his salads, pomegranate seeds sprinkled over yogurt. He laughed about it at first, called it hippie food, but over time, his labs improved. His fatigue lifted. He asked me if it was just coincidence. I told him no, it was biochemistry. Red grapes, for example, contain a compound called resveratrol. Now, that might sound like something off a lab shelf, but it's found right in the skin of these grapes. What makes it extraordinary is its ability to interfere with the proteins that tumors use to feed themselves. A study from Science Translational Medicine showed how resveratrol could suppress the pathways that allow tumors to grow and spread. Another compound in red grapes, proanthocyanidins, further inhibits cancer cell movement, especially in breast cancer, where migration and invasion are deadly. Then there's olive oil. I've written thousands of prescriptions in my life, but few things come close to the healing power of a tablespoon of cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil used daily. It contains oleocanthal, molecule that, quite astonishingly, can puncture the membranes of cancer cells, causing them to self-destruct, all while leaving healthy cells untouched. It's targeted therapy, delivered not from a syringe, but from a bottle on your kitchen counter. Olive oil also contains hydroxytyrosol and squalene, both of which have strong antioxidant effects, helping to reduce oxidative stress that can lead to cellular mutation. When patients ask me where to start, I often point to olive oil. Simple, accessible, profoundly protective. But if there's one fruit that deserves more attention than it gets, it's the pomegranate. I first took notice of it not in a clinic, but in a history book. Ancient civilizations believed it held life-giving properties, and modern science now understands why. Pomegranates are rich in panicalagins and elagitannins, compounds that have been shown to inhibit the growth of cancer cells, especially in breast and colon cancers. And when these compounds are digested, they're broken down into metabolites called urolithins, which have been observed to trigger apoptosis, cellular suicide in malignant cells. I've seen women with high risk of breast cancer introduce pomegranate into their daily routine, not as a cure, but as part of a long-term defense strategy. It's not about miracles, it's about momentum, tilting the body toward balance, again and again. And then there's avocado, a food I once dismissed as rich in fat and little else. How wrong I was. In recent years, research has uncovered a fascinating range of cancer-fighting agents inside this humble fruit. One of them, persin, has demonstrated the ability to inhibit breast cancer cell proliferation. Another, avocatin B, has shown promise in targeting leukemia stem cells, a notoriously difficult enemy in cancer therapy. But beyond these specific compounds, avocados provide oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that not only reduces inflammation, but supports cellular membranes and helps shuttle nutrients into cells more efficiently. I often tell my patients, fat isn't the enemy, the wrong kind of fat is. Avocados are the right kind. What unites all of these foods is that they are deeply colored, rich in texture, slow to spoil, and full of life-giving compounds. They come from nature's wisdom, not from a chemistry lab. And yet their effects, when properly understood, are no less powerful than any drug I've ever prescribed. Over the years, I've watched too many people wait for illness before they make changes. They wait until the diagnosis forces their hand, until a doctor sits them down with bad news. But recovery, true recovery, doesn't begin at the hospital door. It begins long before, in the quiet, daily choices we make. In the fruits we buy, the oils we cook with, the way we build a plate. I've stood beside patients as they fought for their lives. I've celebrated when the scans came back clean, and I've mourned when they didn't, but in every case, I still believe that food is one of the most underutilized forms of medicine we have, especially when it comes to antioxidants. They don't just prevent damage, they create a biological environment where healing is possible. And that matters not just during treatment, but in the years that follow. Cancer recovery isn't a single event, it's a process of rebuilding, rebalancing, and it's ongoing. Antioxidant-rich foods support that process day by day, bite by bite. If you're listening to this, whether you're healthy, healing, or supporting someone who is, don't underestimate the power of your plate. Red grapes, olive oil, pomegranates, avocados, these are not exotic luxuries. They are investments, they are protection. They are acts of care, one meal at a time. I may no longer wear a white coat or carry a stethoscope, but I carry these lessons with me. And I pass them on to you, not as a replacement for medical treatment, but as a companion to it. Because in the fight for life, every advantage counts. And nature, in all its wisdom, has given us more than we often choose to see. I've spent much of my life surrounded by medical technology, monitors beeping, surgical lights humming, scans glowing in sterile rooms. And yet, after all these decades, some of the most powerful tools for preventing disease don't come from operating rooms or laboratories. They come from grocery stores, from gardens, from the humble meals we prepare without fanfare. I want to talk to you about everyday foods, the kind that don't make headlines or get their own segments on health shows. The kind that you've likely walked past 100 times without ever realizing the quiet power they carry. You see, in my years as a physician, I found that prevention isn't just about rare herbs or imported superfoods, it's about the simple staples we so often overlook. Staples that, when consumed with intention, can become our first line of defense against cancer. I'll never forget a patient of mine, Margaret. She was in her 70s, with arthritis in her knees and a love of home-cooked meals. She lived on a modest budget, didn't take expensive supplements, and had never heard of quinoa or goji berries. But she had something better: consistency. She ate real food, sweet potatoes roasted in her oven, cabbage cooked into soups, artichokes steamed with lemon. Over the years, as her neighbours grew ill, Margaret remained surprisingly resilient. Her immune markers were strong, her energy steady. It wasn't luck, it was lifestyle. Take sweet potatoes, for example. We often associate them with comfort food, holiday casseroles smothered in sugar. But at their core, they are a deeply nourishing food. Their orange hue comes from beta-carotene, a powerful antioxidant that helps neutralize free radicals, those unstable molecules that damage cells and contribute to cancer development. But what fascinated me more was what I found in the purple variety, anthocyanins. These compounds give the tuber its vibrant color, and in studies, they've been shown to slow the growth of cancer cells, particularly in colorectal and breast cancer models. When you eat sweet potatoes, especially with the skin on, you're not just filling up, you're fortifying your cells. Cabbage, too, has been unjustly relegated to side dish status. I used to dismiss it myself until I read more deeply into the research. Inside this humble crucifer lies a treasure trove of protective compounds, glucosinolates that, when broken down during digestion, transform into active agents like sulforaphane. This particular compound has been shown to inhibit the growth of cancer cells and to support the body's detoxification systems. One study found it particularly effective against breast, lung, and colon cancer. I've advised patients to lightly steam or stir-fry cabbage not to eradicate disease, but to change the internal terrain where disease tries to take root. Artichokes were a surprise even to me. For years, I thought of them as a Mediterranean delicacy, a complex appetizer requiring patience to prepare. But what's inside silymarin, cynarin, and luteolin has been linked to the inhibition of cancer cell proliferation, especially in skin and breast tissues. These polyphenols work by promoting apoptosis, the process of programmed cell death that cancer cells try so desperately to avoid. By supporting this natural cycle, artichokes help the body maintain cellular order. They also support liver function, which plays a crucial role in detoxifying carcinogens. Pineapple, often dismissed as mere dessert, holds within its golden flesh an enzyme called bromelain. This enzyme has demonstrated the ability to support the immune system, reduce inflammation, and perhaps most intriguingly make cancer cells more susceptible to chemotherapy. Bromelain also helps white blood cells move more freely, improving circulation and helping the body respond more efficiently to threats. I had a patient who swore by fresh pineapple after her treatments. She said it was the only thing that helped her digestion and gave her back a sense of vitality. I smiled, knowing there was science behind her instinct. These aren't expensive solutions. They don't require you to shop at health food boutiques or follow a restrictive diet. They are ordinary foods with extraordinary potential if only we learn to see them for what they are. I've always believed that prevention should be democratic. It should be accessible. You shouldn't have to be wealthy or well-connected to protect your health. In the hospital, I saw patients from every walk of life. Some with every resource at their fingertips still struggled, while others like Margaret seemed to quietly thrive. The difference often lay in the consistency of their choices, the simplicity of their meals, the absence of processed distractions. These foods I'm speaking about, sweet potatoes, cabbage, artichokes, pineapple, were never meant to be medicine. But nature, in its quiet genius, made them medicinal. It's easy to dismiss small changes. One vegetable won't fix everything, of course. But over time, repeated across weeks, months, years, these foods shift the body's chemistry. They build resilience from the inside out, and more importantly, they send a signal. They tell your body, I care, I'm paying attention. I'm giving you what you need. Cancer prevention is not a single act. It's a way of living, a mindset, a form of stewardship. And while nothing offers a guarantee, believe me, I've wished for guarantees all my life. What I can promise you is this: every step toward nourishment is a step away from disease. In my retirement, I've stepped out of the OR and into the kitchen. I teach families how to cook again, how to taste again, how to make friends with their food, not with fear, but with reverence. Because these staples aren't just fuel, they are messengers, carrying information straight to your cells. So don't overlook what's ordinary. The everyday can be sacred, the simple can be profound. And prevention, more often than not, starts with what we place quietly, daily, on our plate. After walking with you through the stories and science of these remarkable foods, from the exotic to the everyday, I want to leave you with something more than just information. I want to leave you with understanding, because the truth is, health isn't about extremes. It isn't about magical cures or complicated protocols, it's about consistency. It's about the quiet, unglamorous choices we make each day, what we reach for at the grocery store, what we prepare for dinner, what we feed our children, and what we feed ourselves when no one's watching. As a doctor who spent more than 40 years in medicine and now lives in retirement, I've come to see clearly that prevention is not a single moment, it's a lifelong mindset. The foods we've explored, rich in antioxidants, immune-boosting compounds, natural plant chemicals, are not meant to scare you or replace medical care. They are meant to remind you that you are not powerless. That cancer does not always strike out of nowhere, that your body, when nourished well, has a wisdom far deeper than we often credit. We've talked about black cumin, mangosteen, sauersup, grapes, garlic, mushrooms, and even sweet potatoes and cabbage, foods you can find, foods you can afford, and more importantly, foods that talk to your cells. They reduce inflammation, they aid detoxification, they strengthen immune surveillance, and most importantly, they create an internal environment where health has a chance to win. But all of this knowledge means very little unless it changes something in how we live. I've seen people accumulate information like trophies, but never act on it. And I've seen others take one small change: a salad added to dinner, soda replaced with water, vegetables included in every lunch, and radically improve their quality of life. So here's the core lesson I hope you take from everything we've shared. Food is not just about nutrition, it is communication. Every bite you take sends a message. That message can be one of healing or one of harm. You are not just eating for hunger, you are feeding your future. And that future will arrive sooner than you think. Whether you're young or old, healthy or recovering, wealthy or struggling, it doesn't matter. Nature has given us tools, and they are not locked behind patents or pharmacy counters. They are growing in fields, stacked in markets, sitting patiently on your shelves, waiting to be chosen. If you apply this in your life, even modestly, you may begin to feel the change. Better sleep, clearer skin, fewer colds, more energy, steadier moods. These are not coincidences, they are signs that your body is saying thank you. As for me, I'm just an old doctor with a camera and a lifetime of stories. I've seen what illness can steal, and I've seen what intention can restore. I no longer work in hospitals, but I still serve in a different way. I share what I've learned, hoping it might spare someone pain, give someone clarity, or light a small fire of curiosity in someone who's been lost in confusion. Now, before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Which one of the foods we talked about today do you already include in your meals, or which one are you curious to try first? Please leave your answer in the comments below. Just write the name of the food and maybe share how you prepare it. It's a simple way for our growing community to learn from one another and exchange ideas. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel so I can continue creating more content like this. And if you feel moved to support the work I do here, sharing decades of medical insight, story by story, please consider making a small donation. Every contribution, no matter the size, helps keep this mission alive. I'm an old man, but I've still got some good years left and I want to spend them doing something that matters. Thank you for watching, thank you for caring, and thank you for choosing to live with awareness. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, eat well, live wisely, and never stop learning.